means because they haven't done enough research and they haven't bothered to check anything out. But folks need to comprehend what's going on here. Here's one of the definitions of Satan. Satan is the father of lies. He introduced sin and instigates men to sin. That's what we're dealing with here. We have an entity that is instigating people to sin and create crime. Remember, I told you before, sin is a crime against society. When you go and do drive-by shootings, that's a crime against society. When you go and poison people's water, that's a crime against society. When you murder a bunch of children, no matter what their race and ethnicity is, including people that blew up a church in the South back in the day, that's a crime against society. When you molest children and sodomize children and rape children and commit incest on little children, that's a crime against society. Sin is also crimes against nature. Having sex with animals is a crime against nature. Now, there's a lot that I want to cover, but I'm going to have to do it in another order. And the reason I'm going to do that in another order is because there were people that had their hands up and they had questions, and I don't want to keep going on and on. And like I said, I'm sure people don't want to hear me talk anyway, so let's hear from some callers and let's hear some janky comments and let's hear some intelligent questions if there are any. And let's hear some opposers that want to argue with me half the night. And don't forget, at some point I want to hear from, what do you call that, that last caller that we had, Brother Newbie, if he's around. But let's take a caller and see what's going on out here, because we only have 30 minutes left.
Okay, it's 30 minutes remaining left in the show. You can call in. The number is 323-443-7511. If you have any questions, call in now within the last 30 minutes. Right now, is no one in the call queue that has their hands raised up, so I guess it's safe that you can go on with your lecture. If anybody want to call in, the time is now. I would take your call and let Yaffa know that there's someone wanting to ask a question.
Okay, yeah, because I'm not trying to screw around people with people's senses and sensibilities. It's not about race and religion. It's about people that have, or an entity that uses race and religion to get everyone tripping down the wrong path. They use race and religion to get us off one another. And I don't want to get going on another tangent and have somebody call in wanting to ask a question. And like I said before, if you really want to know what's going on, I've told everyone before, there's a book that you can purchase or you can look at it on the Internet. It's there on the Internet for free. You can read the entire book from cover to cover. It is on a website called IamTheWitness.com, and it's called The Synagogue of Satan. And by the time you get from cover to cover in that book, you'll know exactly what's going on. You may not be able to put a finger on who it is because they keep saying it's Jews. I'm saying I think they're being set up too. Now, there is a book that I'm going to suggest by an author named Michael Bradley, because, again, you need to hear from Europeans. Nobody wants to hear from me. It's called Chosen People from the Caucasus. Chosen People from the Caucasus. And this is going back to this strange blend that I was telling you guys about that's going on between what I see as the mafia, misinformed people that are identified as Jews, some of whom are and most of whom probably are not. They're just using that because they can use it and get away with it because, hey, what better way? Use the scapegoat that's the best scapegoat. So-called black folks and so-called Jewish folks. Everybody's scapegoats. And then there's this Neanderthal that wants to continue to exist. Now, there's something else that I wanted to bring to people's attention is on a slightly different note. I was looking at something today, and this tells you the direction that we're heading in. It's so bass-backward. Some of the states that are now making it acceptable for students to carry concealed weapons are Texas in 2008, Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, which is not a state but a city, in 2010, Oklahoma in 2011, Utah in 2011, and Washington State is still discussing it. And the problem with that is, most of the time when there's a mass shooting spree, most of these individuals that commit these kinds of crimes are individuals that are licensed to carry concealed weapons or licensed to carry weapons. So, you know, people need to be aware of that. And something else that was really troubling also, to show the decline to which we have stooped, the levels that this so-called country has stooped to, is Chicago's Northwestern University has recently has a problem going on because in one of the sex classes, someone came in demonstrating sex toys in the school, in the sex ed class. And two of the students, I'm assuming they were a couple, felt like they couldn't really get the general gist of what was going on with the sex toy, so they wanted to demonstrate it live for everybody in the class. Now, when class was over, you know, people were notified that, you know, class is out, you can go on to your next classes or whatever the case may be, or, you know, off time, you can try and watch while they do this. This couple actually jumped up on the table in front of everybody and performed a sex act live. Girl got up there, took her clothes off. They got busy in the classroom at Chicago's Northwestern University. Well, duh. There's a problem here. I'm just telling you guys, there's a meltdown going on in the United States of America. And it has been allowed to happen because everybody's tripping on the wrong stuff. And as long as we keep tripping on the wrong stuff, we're going to wind up in big, big trouble here, because to the rest of the world, the United States is looking like the great Satan that has no say for anyone, and we're not going to get any help. The Tsar of Russia is not there to help us. Britain was trying to help take us out. Pick a country. Is there a country that you can think of that is still armed that could defend us or come to our aid in a crisis the way the Tsar of Russia came to our aid during the Civil War, which was a crisis that was instigated from the outside? And I guarantee you, half the things that I'm talking about are being instigated from the outside.
We have a caller, 651-334. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes.
How you doing? My question
Marvelous,
is...
Doc. How are you?
All right. How about yourself?
Marvelous. What's your question?
My question is, what is the difference between a Neanderthal and what we think is white people? And if there is a difference, where did the white people come from that are not the Neanderthals?
Okay, now I think I kind of covered that in the beginning, so maybe you tuned in late. There were the Neanderthals. The Neanderthals, very furry. They look like animals for the most part. Now, when I said earlier that what they call Cro-Magnon man came in from Africa, and I said a lot of those people were snatched up, and you would see a good example of this in the newest version of the Time Machine. In the new version of the Time Machine, it's the same thing that occurred. They came down off the caves, they snatched the women up, the sisters up, went in, raped them, they ate the men, raped the women. Actually, they raped the men too. Raped the men, raped the women, ate the men, had children with the women, and these children wound up becoming something a little bit different. Now, a lot of times the children got ate, but there were many sisters that actually were able to escape with their children from the caves, which was not that easy to do because it was very, very cold. You know what I'm saying? And some of those individuals became part Neanderthal and part what you guys call African.
Okay.
And some of those individuals were supposed to get grafted back into the African family. But I think what's happening is the Neanderthals are trying to graft them back into the Neanderthal family.
Right.
And a lot of these individuals have been so far removed from it, they're part some of everything. Like I said, I have a lot. I'm part French, part African, part Chinese, part Mexican. And when I say part Mexican, I'm talking about the melanin-rich Mexicans. We had hundreds of acres in what you call Texas. And a lot of our people that are still alive have a lot of this stuff in the bloodline. A lot of their people have a lot of different stuff in the bloodline. And it's up to individuals to decide what part of your bloodline you want to tap into. We have melanin-rich people that look like us that behave like Neanderthal. We have brothers that molest children. We have brothers that are raping children. We have brothers that are raping women. We have brothers that are raping men. Some brothers go into prison and can't come out with their dignity intact. And I'm saying that to say it's a choice. You can be misled down the road, but at some point you have to wake up and decide what you're doing and step away from a thing and make a choice. Are you going to behave more like the animal that's gotten in your bloodline? Because even the Empress of Washita said, we all have that tainted stuff in our genetics now. Like I'm sure a lot of these so-called white folks think that they got some of this tainted stuff in their genetics now that they think is black taint, or what you guys would call African-American Negro black taint. So it's all about, people just need to decide. We're at a point where we're going to have to start judging people based on their character and how, their content and how they behave. But, I can't tell anybody what to do. All I can do is show you guys some of the stuff that I found looking up words, and people can take it or leave it. People can either, I'm going to say this to you, as bad as things are in the United States amongst the different races and the different religions and the different classes and this corporation that calls itself a country that's sitting on the Americas, look around the world and look at what has transpired in other countries when these entities that I'm talking about took over. Now, they came over here and took over, but there was a difference in the type of so-called European that was in the north versus the ones in the south. Even Europeans say there's nothing worse than a southern European, especially the ones in Texas, that they're more animalistic than anybody, according to some Europeans that I have, found in research, different comments that are made in, like, books and stuff like that on the research front. But just like there are some of our people that I wouldn't leave my child unattended, I wouldn't want me unattended around them.
Right.
So I'm saying that to say there are some Europeans that if you get around them, like, for example, the two, or I think it's three, I'm aware of three brothers that have been dragged behind trucks who were with, two of whom I know were with friends at the time. And in both instances, their so-called white friends had been drinking. And something transpired with one of them where I guess they were like, hey, let's drag him and see what's happening till his head rolls off. And they drugged this brother to his death. These were his friends. The other brother was in the car with some Europeans that were his friends, and something happened where he said, you know what, you're drunk and you're driving, let me out. He got out, and his friend ran him over and continued to drive and just dragged him to his death. I know a brother personally, when I was in attendance at Chico State University, who, because Chico State University is in Northern California, north of Sacramento, predominantly European community. But there was a brother who had befriended some what you call white folks, and, I guess they were weed smoking or whatever the case may be, beer drinking. They went up in, I can't think of the name of the creek. There's a creek that people go to up in the Chico area, and they jump on the inner tubes and they ride down the inner tubes or whatever. But he went up, and he was very melanin rich. He went up by himself with a bunch of European people who, they all came back down off the hill, and people were like, well, whatever happened to so-and-so? Nobody knew whatever became of the brother. Ultimately, about a week later, his dead body was found floating in the water. Now, no one ever brought these Europeans up on charges because, they get away with murder. That's one of the reasons why the United States is in trouble, because they let these types of behavior